For a long time, productivity felt like progress in America. Getting more done meant you were moving forward. Being busy meant you were building something. Efficiency felt like control. Productivity wasn't just a tool, it was a promise. If you stayed disciplined, organized, and driven, life would reward you. You would feel accomplished, secure, satisfied. But somewhere along the way, that promise began to feel hollow. Americans today are more productive than ever. Technology has removed friction from almost everything. Tasks that once took hours now take minutes. Communication is instant. Information is unlimited. And yet, something feels off. People aren't just tired, they're strangely unfulfilled. Even after productive days, something lingers. A sense that nothing really settled, that the momentum never turned into meaning. For many Americans, productivity no longer brings relief, it brings pressure. There's always more to optimize, more habits to refine, more efficiency to unlock. Rest feels temporary. Completion feels fragile. Satisfaction feels delayed. This isn't because people forgot how to work hard. Americans have always worked hard. What changed is what productivity began to stand for. At some point, productivity stopped being a means to a life and started becoming the measure of one. Being productive became proof that you were responsible, driven, worthwhile. And when productivity carries that kind of weight, it can never fully satisfy. Because the moment it slows, doubt creeps in. Am I doing enough? Am I falling behind? Am I wasting time? These questions don't wait for failure anymore. They exist even during success. Psychologists and workplace researchers have noticed this shift clearly. Stress related to productivity is no longer tied only to workload. It's tied to identity. People don't just want to be productive, they feel like they have to be. And when productivity becomes an obligation rather than a tool, happiness quietly slips away. This is why so many Americans feel busy but ungrounded, efficient but anxious, accomplished but strangely empty. The day is full, the calendar is packed, but the sense of arrival never comes. Productivity keeps moving the finish line. Part of the problem is that productivity was never designed to answer emotional questions. It can tell you what you did, it can tell you how much you produced, but it can't tell you who you are. And yet, modern American life keeps asking it to do exactly that. Workdays stretch longer, evenings blur into planning, rest becomes strategic. People track their steps, their sleep, their focus, their output. Everything becomes measurable, but meaning isn't measurable. And when a culture prioritizes what can be measured, what can't be measured begins to fade. Presence, contentment, belonging. Those don't show up on dashboards, so people compensate. They work harder, optimize more, stay busy longer. Not because it makes them happier, but because stopping feels unsafe. This is especially visible in how Americans experience rest. Rest used to be recovery. Now it feels like preparation. Even leisure is productive. Vacations are optimized, hobbies are monetized, downtime is justified. And when rest has to earn its place, it stops restoring anything. The mind never fully releases. The body never fully settles. Happiness becomes something postponed, something promised after the next milestone. But milestones keep coming. Another promotion, another goal, another upgrade, and still the same question quietly returns. Why doesn't this feel like enough? This question doesn't mean people are ungrateful. It doesn't mean they lack ambition. It means productivity has been asked to replace something deeper. For much of American history, productivity existed within a broader sense of purpose: family, community, faith, shared values. Those things provided context. Work mattered, but it wasn't everything. Over time, many of those anchors weakened. People moved more. Communities fragmented. Shared rhythms disappeared. Productivity filled the gap. It offered structure, identity, a sense of worth. But productivity is conditional. It only validates you when you're producing. It withdraws affirmation the moment you slow down. That's a fragile foundation for a human life. This is why productivity eventually turns against happiness. Because happiness requires a sense of enoughness, and productivity is built on the idea that there is always more to do. More to improve, more to fix, more to chase. In that system, contentment feels like complacency, so people push past it, they ignore signals of exhaustion, they override intuition, they keep going. Not because they're weak, but because stopping feels like falling behind. This is where anxiety quietly takes root. Not dramatic anxiety, subtle anxiety, the kind that hums in the background, the kind that turns silence into discomfort, the kind that makes stillness feel unearned. Many Americans don't struggle because they lack purpose. They struggle because purpose has been reduced to performance. When performance dips, purpose wobbles, and no amount of productivity can stabilize that. This is the point where some people start to sense the problem, even if they can't name it. They say things like, "I don't know why I'm doing all this anymore. I'm busy, but I don't feel present. I feel like I'm always chasing something." Those aren't complaints about work. They're signals about meaning. They suggest that productivity, on its own, is an incomplete answer. Human beings need effort, but they also need grounding. They need to know that their value isn't constantly being calculated. This idea isn't new. Long before modern productivity culture, older traditions warned about tying human worth too closely to output. They encouraged effort, but not obsession. Discipline, but not excess. Work, but not identity. One of those traditions comes from Islam, and what's striking is how directly it addresses this tension. In Islamic thought, work is important, effort is respected, excellence is encouraged, but worth is not produced. Value doesn't come from how much you accomplish. It comes from intention, character, and balance. One of the most foundational teachings in Islam is that actions are judged by intentions, not by visibility, not by volume, not by constant output, by intention. This quietly dismantles the pressure to prove worth through endless productivity. It means effort matters even when outcomes are uncertain. It means rest is not failure. It means being human is not something you earn. Islam also places strong emphasis on moderation, not as a lifestyle trend, but as a moral necessity. Excessive striving is seen as spiritually harmful, not admirable, because when striving consumes the self, it hollows life out. In this framework, productivity is a servant, not a master. It supports life, it doesn't define it. Happiness, then, isn't found by doing more. It's found by placing effort within limits, by knowing when enough is enough. This perspective doesn't reject ambition. It simply refuses to let ambition replace meaning. And that may be the lesson many Americans are circling toward now. Not that productivity is bad, but that it was never meant to carry the weight of happiness. Happiness requires something productivity can't provide: a sense of inherent worth, a sense of balance, a sense of being grounded even when nothing is being produced. Until productivity is returned to its proper place, it will continue to disappoint. Not because people aren't trying hard enough, but because they're asking it to do something it was never designed to do.